Hello and welcome to my new weekend slot series. Because I am setting all of my games to a dedicated schedule, instead of just slapping them up whenever I feel like it. If you watched my channel's future video, you will probably see what the schedule will be. But the weekend slot, i.e. Saturday and Sunday, shall be taken by this little game called Gnomoria. Gnomoria is a kind of city builder kind of thing. Not so much in the strain of SimCity, but more in the strain of, if you've ever played Dwarf Fortress, something like that, but not as intensive. It's been compared to Dwarf Fortress Lite. It's easier to access and it's not as confusing as Dwarf Fortress is. But it runs the same on the base level. You start with so many people. You start with these people and some supplies in various storage and 2 yaks, a male and a female, to have a breeding pair. And you start in this world. It is randomly generated. I did the generating already because I usually pick a huge map for a lot of space, and that generally takes about 5 or more minutes to generate, so that wouldn't have been very entertaining to watch. But I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than other Gnomoria people do, and we have lapis, which is a bright blue ore. Or rock. There's several different rocks, but I kind of like lapis just because it's a bright blue and looks kind of silly and awesome at the same time. But I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than other people who play this game have, which is I'm going to be making a dedicated surface kingdom. Because generally what you do in games like Dwarf Fortress or Gnomoria is dig a hole in the ground and make an underground world and have this kind of singular gatehouse. I don't really do that. I actually like to build buildings and structures and walls and all this kind of stuff. And that is what I'm going to be doing. So we're going to first have to flatten this area out, and I'm pretty much going to explain things as I go along. So I am just going to give the order for my foragers to start cleaning out these things. I don't want them to forage the trees. Well, I can give the forage order on them, because then I'm going to give a tree chop order, which will override that because it is given afterwards. Going to just scroll down to here and chop these trees. Actually give it a smaller location. Kind of want to chop all of these trees because I gave a forage order on them, and that'll give our woodcutters something to do for a while. And the foragers shall manage that. What we also need to do is designate a pasture for the yaks, because otherwise they'll start to roam around, and that is generally not good. It'll just be a small temporary one for now, but I have the farmers dedicated to do pasturing beforehand, and I'll get to the whole jobs in a minute once I give people things to do so I can explain while they're actually doing something. And this goes right into a large mountain, so it looks as good of a place as any to start a mine. I will just dig 25 blocks in, and then let's branch it out a little bit. Let's say 20 on either side. Hopefully we find rocks, because rocks are the first thing we need. Now, it occurred to me that the game pauses when I do this, like, hang on. But I will quickly go over the professions, because if you ever played Gnomoria, you'll notice that these things are a little bit different. Now, what I've done is given everybody the doctoring and both building and hauling skills, because that's generally something that is just overall needs to be done, so it's best to give them to everybody. And everybody has mechanic as the top priority, which won't come into play for a while, but they need the mechanic job in order to ring the alarm bell, which allows them to gather in a dedicated location in case of an attack, because we can be attacked by goblins, among other things that are arguably worse than goblins. You have the miners, who obviously mine the stone and do anything masonry related, and they do mining first. On the opposing hand, something I like to do at the start is have a stone worker who does the same exact thing, but in the opposite order. I didn't actually give this guy the mechanicing job, but the stone worker is the other miner that we started with, but he has workshop above mining, because if he had mining above and we had, say, an order to make a stone chair, but then we had an order to go mine out some ore, they'd both go mine out the ore and then the stone chair wouldn't get done. In this case, if there is a workshop order that needs to be done, the stone worker will handle it first. The exact opposite, or the exact same thing has been done for the woodcutters. Except he has workshop over all of the other skills that the woodcutter would have. Then we have the farmer, who does a hell of a lot of stuff. I got rid of the rancher skill, or rancher profession, because early game, the ranchers generally don't do a whole lot, because that is just tending the animals. So the farmers have pasture first, then farm, because there's only 2 animals to tend to, and the rancher is a farmer as well. Then we have the laborer, who used to be a builder, but I like to do this just to get things rolling, that he is the only profession that has hauling above building. So he'll move things around in the stockpiles first before building, so that way things can actually get moved around. Because otherwise, things that you want moved from point A to point B, like food foraged from a tree over to the food stockpile, will just sit there until there are no building jobs, and then people go do it. But generally, you're always, especially with the Surface Kingdom, you're always building something, so it's nice to have a couple haulers. Then the blacksmith, probably won't have him for a while, but I have added gem working into the blacksmith just because, again, the gem cutter doesn't really have a whole lot of work to do, so they just kind of sit around. And the engineer, once again, not something we're going to handle for a while, and the stoneworker and woodworker. And that is the professions. But first, what we need to do is, there's some rocks right away. But first, what we need to do is build a crude workbench, which is made out of a log, which I like pine just to make it even, because I kind of have a little bit of perfection in that way, and any raw stone. Now, the purpose of this is it is the starting workshop, meaning the things that you need to make the more advanced workshops are made here, like planks and workbenches and other things like that. However, as a result, it is not nearly as efficient as, say, having a dedicated carpenter and can't do nearly as much. So let's click on the crude workbench and start pine logs. There is a craft to button, which I will have craft to, let's say 10. No, let's say 8. 8 pine planks. So now, in theory, our woodworker should start taking any pine planks to start making, or pine logs to make pine planks, which then I could use here to make a chair and a workbench, and I will also have one of the stone worker make a chisel. Now, the reason why I need this is to build the first workshop, which is generally the carpenter or the stone cutter. You need a few workshops to actually really get your land going, and for now we're just going to place them outside. But next, apparently the miner has nothing to do. So let's fix that. Ooh, we found some copper right away. But let's have the miner continue a path down here, another 25 rows. And since rock continues that way, continue there. Now I do whenever I find ores is just kind of give a 3x3 general order where the ore was located. In some cases more if you can see more ores, and continue doing that as they mine. You could, in theory, mine every single block, but I generally don't like to do that because it's a bit too intensive. Who are you and why are you standing around? You're the laborer. That's fair. Now, the problem with this is that, again, that is severely inefficient. Also, I like to use this to get building orders because that's just the most common order you tend to do. And this just gives an entire list of stuff instead of the area here where you have to select all of the different ones. And there are a fair few different kinds of workshops. But for now, we also need a stone cutter and a stone mason. I'll put the stone cutter down because both of these are very nice and are needed above all else. But I will let him build the workbench first because otherwise he's going to make another chair when I order another chair. We should be making that right now, so let's order... Actually, let's just order the 2 more chisels we're going to need. And another chair. And another workbench. And that is going to the stone cutter. That is perfectly acceptable. Now, next order of business is to order the stone cutter to craft to 8 blocks. That will give the stone worker something to do in the meantime, and will also give us blocks to use in the future. There is a lot of trees. I think I'm going to do is just as a little temporary thing is designate a dining room. Now, the purpose of the dining room is that people who are idling will go there. Let's make it a 5x5 area, and you can order it to Great Hall. Idle gnomes gather in the Great Hall. The worth of your Great Hall helps attract nomads, and only one dining room can be designated as a Great Hall. I believe the worth of items is doubled in the Great Hall, and your kingdom worth, as shown here, is the deciding factor on how many nomads arrive and the strength of enemies who arrive. There's a lot of people idle, so let's fix that by designating a farmland. Let's designate, I usually like to do 5x10. I will name this a wheat farm. And it will be a priority 3 because wheat is generally one of the better things to use. Next, I will designate a strawberry farm. And I like to name these because you can actually see them in the kingdom menu, which will be a priority 4. Yes, farms. Wheat farm and strawberry farm. You can just click on them to go to the menus. And once I chop the rest of the trees over here, I'm going to plant a cotton farm, which isn't nearly as important because currently the only use, well, the use for cotton is fairly limited. There's more stuff to mine over here. Get to it. And 5x5 will do there. But generally, it's getting things working at the start, and I did actually forget that. I would also like to build a couple straw beds. Not too many, just 3 for now, because the yaks eat straw, which straw obviously comes from wheat, so it's nice to get that fairly early. But people will get a better sleep rating on a straw bed than on the floor. They won't be too happy about it, mind you, but they will still be happier than they would have by sleeping on the floor. But eventually we'll get proper beds, and I think at the start it'll just be a dormitory area, probably just out in a holdout area over here just to get them in beds, therefore happier. Because if they're unhappy enough, they'll actually kind of grump around and not do work for a little while until they feel better. Which, at an early stage of the game, is kind of an issue. What I'm also going to do is replace this clay, because you cannot place a farm on clay. It's kind of in the way. And it'll also give the laborers something to do at the moment. Actually, I know what I should do just to give them laborers something to do. We found a lot of copper, which is great. And copper is definitely going to help in the long run. First, we need to mine it out of the ground. And a bit more over here. Now, what I'm going to do is designate a stockpile right here. Yeah, right here. And just have it be named dirt. Which will take all soil, but it will also take any raw stone, which is the lapis that we've been mining from in there. And that'll give the laborers something to do while waiting for jobs, and also just consolidate all of our resources into one nice little area. So there did not actually reach the dirt there, and I doubt we reached the dirt over here. We did find some gems though, that is nice. Gems will be eventually used by the gem cutter to make wonderfully priced rings and necklaces for us to use as bartering tools. Now, we're at the moment where most people in the fort are asleep, so not a whole lot is getting done. But for now, well, the next thing I need to worry about is actually looking to where the enemy can come in, because as this is a surface kingdom, and actually generally at the start of the game regardless, you have until the first day of summer in order to prepare yourself for the enemy to attack, because you have until then, till goblins start to arrive, and seasons in this game last 12 days. It's kind of weird, but 12 days. And actually this is an extremely good spot, because there's only 2 areas that the enemy can really come through. Because I can simply order the miners to remove the ramps across most of this territory, so the only areas I need to actually wall off are here and here. That is a lot better than some of the spawns I've gotten in before, where I needed like 8 walls around the area. Even though it looked nice, it turned out to be kind of crap. mine some of that just to get the rest of the copper. And I would like for you to make another chair and another workbench. And I am going to reorient myself. And I am going to build the stonemason, who is used to make stone-based products such as stone chairs and tables and a trough for the axe, which is pretty nice, but more importantly, the saw blade, which is required for the sawmill, which we really need in order to replace the crude workbenches. Now, what does this need? A chair and a workbench. Simple enough. Actually order another chair and another workbench. And I like to make things out of pine just because it is the resource you really start off with. I mean, your barrels are always made out of pine, your crates are always made out of pine, and generally I save the fruit woods, which is apple and orange, for dedicated crafts to sell to the merchants, because merchants are in a lot of cases needed because they will sell you things that would be otherwise difficult to acquire, such as they'll freely sell you metals and colored different color rocks that you wouldn't get until you mined dozens of layers deep into the ground. And if you mine too deeply and too greedily, certain kinds of enemies such as skeletons and zombies will spawn, and in early game military, or in a lot of cases early game no military at all, that would generally be the end of your fort. So that is not a good idea until you have fairly armored and well-trained troops. But for now, as both of the wood-related people, well, okay, not both the wood-related people, but the woodworker is sleeping, and there are still trees to chop, there is a slight problem. But as for here, we got all of the copper. It's not a whole lot, but it is a wonderful start. And as for more areas, it seems like, well, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot here because that's the edge. But what I should probably do is give the remove ramp order. So I'm going to have a wall placed over here, and it'll actually be at the water's edge, but I'd like to just get these out of the way. I'll cancel the jobs that went into the water in a minute, but generally just to remove all these ramps, because as it stands at the moment, there are no enemies who have ranged weaponry. Therefore, you can freely just remove ramps and ferry the enemy into a dedicated entrance, and they have to fight in that dedicated entrance because there is no other way for them to try and kill you. And the other wall shall be over here. And now what I will do is just cancel these jobs that ended up in the water. So that pretty much all we need to do there. The laborers start moving the dirt nicely, but the enemy can't actually jump down a single tile, which is kind of weird because it is... I mean, you'd figure highly trained soldiers would be able to survive the fall of one block, which, if someone does actually get pushed off of that, because they can, they do generally survive that. So I don't see why the enemy wouldn't just ninja their way into your base, but I mean, I suppose it would be much more difficult to survive in the early game if that were the case. Now, as for the wood, all of the wood choppers are sleeping. So I think what I should do at this moment, as nothing much is going on, is go into the military and explain that a little bit, because there is a very particular early game thing that most people use. Now, what I'm going to do is just generally remove the presets, because the presets not really that good. Just name this militia, and the equipment shall be, oh, I need to click new first. The equipment shall be none, and remove this, make a new one. Uniform militia. It generally goes in tabs from one to the other. Do not pursue lost targets, maintain distance, retreat if bleeding, don't have a uniform but do assist squad leader. And the perk, there are several perks such as Highlander for two-handed melee damage, chance to decapitate when no armor is equipped, meaning they have a big old sword but no armor. Or Scout, increase move speed and ridge and range with torch, or target nearby fallen enemies and do additional damage, and all these various things that are nice and generally complement each other. But for the beginning, there is Way of the Gnome. Increased attack speed, attack damage, dodge chance, and dodge rate when no armor or weapon is equipped, which is perfect because that's generally what you have at the beginning. Now I'll also name this Militia for now. Remove the formation. Once again, just name it Militia because I'm super creative with names. The perk shall be, there's a bit less squad perks than there is position perks, but for now, it shall be Keep Your Eyes Open, which is increased vision range for each active position, meaning they'll be able to see goblins and enemies further away. And every slot shall use the Militia setup. They will perform attack orders and defend gnome, but also avoid enemies, which means if someone's being attacked, they will go save the person, but otherwise they will attempt to run from anything they see. However, if you give a dedicated order to attack, they will attack it anyway. At least if it's something that would scare them, because if you, for example, send a unarmored, or tell an unarmored gnome to go attack an armored goblin with a claymore, chances are he's going to try and run away regardless, because he's going to have no support and he's most likely going to die, and he knows this. As for squads, there are randomized names, and I think the Ice Spies is a good start. So let's just give the formation of Militia and shove everybody in there. Now, not only does this give them the perks, but in other cases, if they weren't in a military squad, there are several things that they won't do. For example, they will not retreat if bleeding in a fight if they're not actually in an army and told to retreat if bleeding. And same goes for maintaining distance and actively avoiding enemies. Next is the Hawk Knights. They are getting pretty good names. So let's just shove everybody in here, and that is fine for now. This will show any enemies that happen to be existing, but for now there won't be any, and for now there isn't any, and there won't be any for several more days. Taking a drink. That's better. But there won't be any enemies for several more days, and I believe it's anywhere from the 7th to the 9th, I forget the exact date, that wild animals will spawn. Wild animals are, in most cases, more dangerous than the starting goblins, because generally starting goblins will be lucky to have a sword on them. Whereas, you know, fighting a wild grizzly bear with your bare hands is kind of difficult. But we also do start with a partial uniform. It's not very good, we do start with a partial uniform, so let's see if we can find it. That's full of strawberries. This one is full of wheat. And this last one has to have it. Copper sword, breastplate, and a helmet, as well as bandages, which is important. There was a time when you didn't start with any bandages and you had to frantically get bandages up. Because without bandages, if someone gets a wound, they will continue to bleed out until they die, unless they have bandages to bandage themselves with. So that is kind of important. But now we actually have the stonemason, who I will order to make a saw blade. Did I not give an order to make blocks? I apparently did not give an order to make blocks. I thought I did. Just make 8 blocks, and actually, for future reference, just specifically craft it out of lapis. Because we need that saw blade in order to make the sawmill. And actually what I'm going to do is go into the priorities and assign the crafting areas as a 1 grade higher priority than the raw material areas. Because that means those jobs will get done first instead of them making blocks and planks for the next 10 minutes. But now we have the sawmill, which means I can order them to make some planks. And I'm going to order the rest of the planks as we've chopped down some of each, because we may as well get it out of the way. Next, for now, shall be apple. Once again, 8, then birch, and then finally orange. I kind of tend to use orange as a military color because it's kind of, well, it's a kind of pale color, so I like to use it for hilts and wooden logs that I use to make palisades and other things of that nature, because I think it looks kind of more intimidating than, say, apple wood, because it's pale and dark, and it doesn't have a lot of color, which kind of gives off a feeling of dread when you're combining it with weapons. I think dread might not be the correct word, but I feel like you understand what I'm getting at. Now, the next thing is I need to fell the trees where I'm creating the walls. So let's get rid of those, and while we're at it, get rid of these. And actually, I believe I have enough orange to actually create that guy managed to trap himself. So mine that wall to get to freedom. And I will forage these out of the way, just because they're there. Believe there might be enough orange to actually make the palisades. And I wonder if there's more orange nearby. I seem to have horrible luck with actually getting orange trees. That's actually not that bad of a trek. Usually I've had orange trees that would be like the closest one is over here somewhere. Next order of business is to start with the other workshops. This is where I start to get a little bit spammy, because at the beginning I generally make every workshop I need and then start making the buildings for them and slowly move them in there as I get them going. But the loom, I'll wait for the loom. I will get the butcher and the kitchen and the distillery going though. So that's a table, 3 tables, and a chair. 3 tables, 2 chairs, and 2 knives. So what I'd like to do is go to the carpenter and make this very stuff. Where is the hilts? I need to make sticks. Nearly forgot about that. There is something else I like to do that I learned from somebody, which is when you have sticks, craft them. Just give a crafting order to 7. Now, when you give them the order to craft to 7, that will mean that if there's 6, they'll craft another 2, because sticks come in pairs of 2, whereas if you told them to craft 8, if you had 7, they'd craft 2 and lead to 9. And crates can only hold up to 32, so that 8 for each fits rather nicely into a single crate. So that saves up a lot of storage space. But after they make the sticks, we'll be able to make the hilts. But I can actually order the stonemason to make the 2 knives, knife blades, and knives himself. Then, after this, I will order... I need pine sticks, otherwise he's going to make that out of whatever he pleases. There. Now, let's get 3 tables going. And 2 chairs. Out of pine, and a couple pine hilts for the knives. And build the workshops. Put the butcher there, and the kitchen there, and the distillery shall go here. And I can give the deconstruct order of these 2 things. Now, what about the walls? Those are... Never said gnomes were the smartest. The walls still need quite a bit of work done because the woodchopper hasn't gone there because I believe he's been sleeping. Let's forage the rest of the stuff in here, just to get those out of the way. Actually, what I want is to get rid of these trees so that way I can build my farm, my cotton farm. There are more plants than strawberries, wheats, and cotton, but in order to get them, we actually need to buy them from a merchant. All the more reason to want to get a merchant going. But merchant isn't going to be for a while. Now, as for here, he is making all of these sticks first, which is fine, because I need those eventually. And actually, let's designate area over here for sticks, because otherwise they're going to build up a little bit. Wood, sticks. And then build storage crate. And use any crate, because we have 3 pine crates. And they will go build that, and then they'll be able to store the sticks there. As for here, it looks like they really haven't struck anything else of importance other than some stone, which is nice because we'll definitely need the stone, because I plan to build most of our stuff out of stone. And once again, the gnomes are a bit silly. That guy nearly drank himself to death. Drink himself to death. That's the exact opposite of what he nearly did. Self, get it right. He nearly died of dehydration. That's the set of words I was looking for. What was the button? There we go. That button allows you to see things in lower levels than they actually are. And this button lowers the wall so you can see anything behind them, which is rather nice if you're trying to build things behind walls or see if there's anything you need to collect behind them. As for here, this is done. So let's designate the first wall. There are a lot of things, mainly a lot of different kinds of things to do with blocks, which is something I have always been kind of bummed out about, is that there isn't nearly as many options with wood in terms of decoration as there is with stone. So let's designate that and cancel 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Cancel the 2 in the middle, and that will be our entrance. And then I'll build a wall in the back as well. Though I think I'm going to need more orange wood for that. As for here, let's just... No, I don't want to remove the floor. Let's replace this floor with some more dirt and designate the next farmland. This will be a cotton farm, and it will be the last of the priority sets. So you have wheat in priority 3, strawberry in priority 4, and finally cotton in priority 5. And believe me, these farms this large is well big enough for this amount of people, because 3 farmers tending these things, once they get going with, blooming with crops, chances are the farmers aren't going to be able to do a whole lot else. Which is kind of sad, because the other thing that the farmers get to do is also tend to the groves, which actually I think I might set the woodcutters to do, because I've thought about it, and when they have to do that too, that makes it a bit easier. But we've also discovered an area which allows me to explain the diplomacy. The Land of Bushes, a lumber camp, has been discovered. Now if we go to Kingdom and Diplomacy, apparently we've discovered the Lyric Kingdom, which is a merchant city-state. There are a few different areas that will offer different things. And generally they will send merchants when they feel like, who will have stock of their related place. For example, a lumber camp will exclusively sell wood and saplings, whereas a farming area will exclusively sell foods and seeds, a mining area, ores and stone, and a merchant city-state, everything. However, getting, for example, wood from the Land of Bushes would be cheaper than wood from the than the Lyric Kingdom, because they're a merchant city-state. If that makes any sense. Now, in order to really do much besides accept their occasional merchants, we need to accept an ambassador. However, ambassadors require quite lavish rooms, which ambassadors will be the first people to get rooms. Not our own gnomes, but ambassadors. But that is something that we'll be worried about when we actually get all of our workshops going. People continue to fall asleep on the floor. I'm really hesitant to build more beds until the wheat begins to grow, because there is only 15 straw for these 2 yaks until more wheat grows. And who are you and why are you idle? You're a laborer. Fine. But as for here, what are we really missing? Everything. We're missing everything. They are slowly... Oh. That guy's no longer working because there's sticks. And the crate over there is full, so let's just enlarge that for now, so that way the sticks can get moved out of the way so he can continue working. Otherwise, we might have a slight issue. Now, as for what I'm actually going to build, and that's a yak going to get food, but what I'm actually going to build is I've had a few ideas cross my mind, from an actual city to this big massive building, but I could never actually really get a city to work well because it always bugged me with the roofs, because I've really wanted to make thatch roofs, but the way thatch is rarely actually looks nice when you try and make it into a proper roof, because it doesn't have any corner. This game, if you looked closely here, doesn't have any corner blocks. So if you try and make a thatch roof, it kind of looks a bit awkward, and I never really like that. However, I did have the idea of a tower building, which would be a raised structure upon large pillars that kind of overlooked the countryside and had everything that you needed in it, with farms around the base. And I actually kind of like that idea, so I think that is what we're going to do, and we're going to make it out of bright blue blocks, so it'll look even better. However, most people are idling because there's not much to do, because the distillery is made. So what I'm going to do is start the wine crafting. I would very much like to dedicate wine, please. And for now, it will be crafted to 64. And I will repeat this for all of the others, because they'll have a barrel for each, because a barrel each can hold 64. That will get, once the farmers are done there, a farmer will go and start to handle that. As for other workshops, now, do we actually have the pine? We should have the pine. Although why? No, he has to be working there to get more pine if he's the woodworker, because of the priorities. I think if that's the case, is we should fell the rest of the trees in the area, just to get them out of the way, and just get more wood as well. And the ones over here. Done. Now, as for the wall over there, we kind of don't have any orange wood to fix that, so that'll stay as is for now, because we still have quite a few days to actually fix it. Now, as for here, I think I will continue to mine a bit just to get more rocks to work with. That'll be good for now. And I think I will have this, well, I'll dig those out, but I can't branch in that way, actually. This actually goes for quite a while. I think what I'll have this do is go another 20 in that direction. Now, as for this, what is still needing to be made? 2 more chairs, a chair for each thing. That is acceptable. In fact, let's plan out the next items. Let's plan the loom. Which is a loom and a chair. And a chair. There's a chair. There's a chair. Out of pine. And a loom out of pine as well. Now we need the loom to turn raw cotton into cotton bolts, and then the bolts will later be used to make more bandages. However, the issue with that is a tailor requires a bone needle, and the only way to get bones to make a bone needle with is from our poor yaks. So I generally wait until the first yak is born, and male or female shall be butchered in the butcher's shop in order to get the bones. And then, by then, we'll have the bone carver ready to make the bone needle for the tailor. And it'll be at perfect timing because it'll be the start of the summer. Now, as for in here, we started to reach dirt. I'm honestly more worried about getting dirt than stone right now because there's this thing that I kind of rely on for my ores, besides trading for them, is this thing called prospecting, which is a wonderful little feature in this game where at a prospector's shop, the prospector will take 10 of a soil or a stone and will get a metal sliver resulting from it. And I believe it's 10 metal slivers equals a bar of metal. So if there's 10 copper slivers, well then you get a bar of metal. Which, it's really nice because it's just dirt. And the reason why I'm more worried about dirt than stone is that the lower grade metals only come from dirt, whereas the higher grade metals only come from stone. For example, copper, tin, and silver, among I believe malachite, which is a variant of copper, only come from dirt. But things like iron, gold, platinum, all the higher grade stuff that are more end game only come from stone. So if I had someone prospect stone, I'd start getting stuff that I can't really work with, and in this early of a case, probably attract people that are worse off than I'd like. Now, what is this? What's the contents of this? There are still plenty of strawberries in it, so I can't really do much. This is the problem when you're building these things. The people really don't have a lot of time. Well, specifically the woodcutter doesn't have a whole lot of time to make the crates to have storage done. Which is something that is very nice to get going. Now, as we mine out all of those, we did, but we didn't get the ones on the other side. So let's do that. And we've struck dirt. However, I was going to have a large swath mined out over there to get more dirt. And the kitchen is being completed, which is alright, but not nearly as good, because I suppose I can order these now, but what I like to do is have, well, craft loaf of bread to 1, and craft a sausage, which we need meat, to 1, and then sandwich on repeat. Now, if they're lacking bread, or if they're lacking sausages, they can't make sandwiches, so they'll go down to continue making loaves of bread, and vice versa for sausages. Lastly, I also like cheese, because when we really get going with the yaks, we're going to have a lot of yak's milk, and making it into cheese is better than having it sit as drinks, because wines from fruits are generally better. They satisfy more thirst, I believe, than yak's milk. And there goes the butcher shop. Now, all we need is another yak to butcher. Now, as for other things, we can actually get, I think I will, we can get a well, which is a nice panic building, per se, where if you, for some reason or another, don't actually have drinks, people will go to the well to stave off thirst. So having a well is nice, however, as you can guess, it needs to be placed over water. So having this little awkward lake here is actually helping a lot. Actually, does it reach over there? No, it does not. I was going to say, that'd be pretty huge if it did. But next, next we need that loom, and then we need the... where is it? The bone carver. Table, chair, and a knife. And that will be, save for the tailor shop, what we need to start with. Let's get another pine hilt going, and then another pine table going, and then another pine chair. And he is actually taking the stuff over to make the loom already, so that is perfect. Because that means he'll be preoccupied with making the loom instead of making the things I just ordered. And what I also need is for the woodcutter to come over here and chop down some orange trees, because I would like some orange trees to make a wall. And actually what I'll do is just set that up right now. As for here, let's do it here to here. Yeah, that works. And for now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I will cancel the one in the middle. I had to make sure it's even. But later down the line, once the things outside over here and here are taken in, I will have that wall sealed off, so the only way the goblins can get in are from the dedicated area over here. And I'm probably going to put the yak pasture somewhere over here, because the enemies will actually attack your yaks if they see them and don't see goblins, and then you lose yaks, and that is really something you cannot afford really ever, because if they see a yak pasture with 20 yaks in it, they're going to start killing the yaks, and suddenly you have 5 yaks and 15 yak corpses, which, although the meat is nice, it would have been really preferable if they were still in an alive state to breed and make milk and all that other fun stuff. However, I think what I'm going to do is leave it off here. Now that we successfully have the loom going, I will actually order, I believe I need up to 4 at any one time, just to have that going. And when we come back, we will continue on with the day, well, with spring in general, and hope that one of the yaks ends up birthing soon, so we can get the bone needle to get up the tailor, because honestly, I don't feel very safe until I know we can make more bandages. Because if a single goblin comes in with a sword or an axe, I really don't feel too well, because he could very easily cut someone's arm open, and if we don't have enough bandages, that person's going to bleed to death. Now, granted, they usually die from decapitation, but that will be an issue for when we get there. But that is all for now. Till then, see you later.